And welcome to the third hour of American Agenda. I'm Heather Childers.
You guys
Great
do
to
this
have
for
you with
3
us.
hours?
Yes.
It's
so
a marathon.
glad to have you out here.
Yeah, right. I got through the snow. I'm here. I'm Rob Schmidt, and today for Bob Sellers. Good to see you guys. We're joined today by our family of co-hosts, lawyer and GOP strategist Ford O'Connell, also executive director at USA Strong, Erin Elmore, and Democratic strategist Will Pierce. Guys, thanks for coming on. Good to see you guys. You've got Joe Biden, the president, planning to meet with 10 Republican senators in something like an hour from now, negotiating this COVID relief package. The Republicans are proposing their own bill, which is a lot less money. It's like $600 billion, as opposed to Democrats with $1.9 trillion, so more than 3 times as much. It comes after, we've been talking about this, and they're trying to figure out a way to get a deal done. And the question, Ford, is whether or not there's going to be any common ground here, or whether or not Democrats are going to have to do this on their own. What do you think?
Well, look, I'm all for talks, but color me skeptical when it comes to reaching a deal here, because when I look at
part of this plan from the Republicans, and we can bring up the 10 Republicans who are going to meet with President Biden today in the snowy weather there in Washington, D.C. Yeah, there's 5 of them right there. And then we can bring up the other 5, which would include Mitt Romney, who has perhaps been most vocal about this plan. It would include an additional $1,000, but with tighter income limits, some of what Ford was talking about. Erin, do you think that perhaps this is just maybe a stopgap measure to get us through a little while, and then President Biden and Democrats still plan to pass everything else using reconciliation later down the road?
I think the best way to stimulate the economy would be to open it. And as we've seen, COVID has been completely politicized by blue state leaders. What they've done is they've closed these economies, as indicated prior, to win this election. They have won and inherited a problem that they largely created with no way out of it. The stimulus money will help the hurting Americans, but what we have to realize is we can't put a Band-Aid where a stitch is needed. These economies need to open, schools need to open. We need to stimulate the economy naturally and stop writing checks that the American people ultimately have to cash. Where do you think this money is coming from? It's coming from the taxpayers, and this isn't money that we have to spend. So this is a really dangerous way of doing business in terms of the government.
Mm-hmm. Going to go to Will here for a second. You look at the group of the senators. I mean, you've got Romney in there. You've got Collins, Murkowski. These are a lot of the moderate Republicans. Look at the situation in Chicago right now, and they talked a little bit about it at the press briefing today. But what a pickle it is for the Biden administration trying to figure out what side to take. You've got the extraordinarily liberal mayor of Chicago and the Board of Education in a war, basically, with the teachers union about whether or not to reopen. And you've got a White House that doesn't know what to do.
You're completely right. And I think the parents that are impacted by this would use a much stronger word than pickle. It might not even be safe for your viewers to hear right now. As a parent myself, these schools not being open and having to homeschool your children while maintaining careers and jobs and other obligations is next to impossible. I tried to use this remote learning system for one day, and I failed epically. These teachers unions are not looking out for these children. These teachers unions are only looking out for themselves. And let's face it, many Americans would argue that they care more about not having to work. This isn't about saving them or protecting them. It's about taking an easy way out and negotiating other things that have absolutely nothing to do with COVID. This cannot become the new normal. Some of these inner city children, this is the only good education they get during the day. Their parents are often not present or have other issues. This is the only time they get a solid meal and interaction with other children in a positive fashion. You are hurting the children that need the most help in America. Let's face it, we need to get these schools open. Lori Lightfoot of Chicago hasn't exactly been a beacon of morality herself, but at least now she's pretending to care about these children. Let's just see if the teachers unions fall in line.
Yeah, Will, we're going to talk a little bit more about getting the kids back into the classroom a little bit later on, but
not grounded. That's just not grounded in reality. There's no science that's proven that restaurants are the source of spread and that you have to eat outside. But the irony of eating outside is then you go in the ladies' room or the men's room, which is inside anyway. So these restrictions have never made any sort of scientific sense or even common sense. Let's face it.
Rob, did you hear in California? In California, you can eat outside, but you can't watch TV.
Right. Yeah. The TV spreads that virus. Hey, I do appreciate you, Will, fighting for it, though. I know you had everybody against you, but thank you guys so much for coming on. Great panel. Stay with us just for a little while here.
on this. Ford, I'll start with you. You know, it's a little difficult when we're talking about all of these freezing temperatures to kind of talk about global warming. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I think that the Democratic Party actually believes in the cult of climate science. Don't get me wrong, humans are in fact destroying the planet. But when you realize that 90% of our global emissions come from outside the United States.
And I'll get you to comment on this. President Biden's new climate czar, John Kerry, he gave oil workers who were laid off from Biden's climate change executive order a recommendation for a new job last week. Listen to this.
The fastest growing job in the United States before COVID was solar power technician.
Heard that somewhere before, Erin. First of all, it didn't work. Solar panels.
Well, first of all, did he give that message from his private plane?
Yeah.
Or his brand new house?
He's got a sweet
in
jet.
Nantucket that was $11 million and definitely had an environmental impact. Let's face it, these Democrats are such hypocrites. Do as I say, not as I do. The Keystone Pipeline cost the United States 11,000 jobs. And you think you're going to say, oh, we're just going to have solar jobs? We already know they don't pay as well, and they're not as prolific. The Keystone Pipeline had, I believe, a several billion, $1.6 billion, we'll have the loss of it, a $1.6 billion effect on gross wages. You can't justify that at all under the guise of we're saving our planet. China and India, as we've alluded to earlier, are polluting the planet at rates that are just absolutely staggering. But the Democrats won't say anything bad about China because they're on the payroll, so to speak. So they are destroying our planet as the Democrats sit idly by and just say to us, get a job building a wind tower or on solar panels. It's absolutely hypocritical and sick.
Yeah, and these were very high-paying jobs with the Keystone Pipeline. I was listening to one gentleman on one of the...
You know, what I was going to say? I'm from Western Pennsylvania, which is coal country.
Yeah.
And when Joe Biden on the campaign trail was talking about teach these people how to code, he's never clearly spent any time with these people because the coal and the steel industry is their life. That's just like Marie Antoinette saying, let them eat cake.
Yeah. You know, Hillary Clinton made the same mistake.
I'm
going to have to disagree with that for a second.
But it's a much bigger... Wait a minute. Hold on.
Okay, wait. Hold that thought, Ford.
Hold it, yeah.
Yeah, because we have to go to break. We have to go to break. But hold that thought and hold that enthusiasm.
Inspire no insurrection, nobody. I'm just a normal American ex-crack addict turned pillow CEO and advisor to the former president.
Can't believe I'm going to say this, but the Republicans are becoming snowflakes. Saturday Night Live every single week. What happens?
I'm not even going
to say this, Rob. Let me just say this. Okay, for years they have been doing this on both sides of the aisle. It is the first week in office for this president. I will make you a bet. In the next few weeks, let's just even say in the next 2 weeks, there'll be a skit against Joe Biden. It's bound to happen. It's just how it happens.
Okay. What is the bet? What's the bet between you two?
If it's negative against Joe Biden, I'd be willing to put up some cash. Go ahead.
Saturday Night Live is not funny, and nothing that Joe Biden has done in the last 2 weeks is funny. They have plenty of material, but just like they've done with fashion, we had Melania Trump, Ivanka Trump, Lara Trump, who are beautiful, statuesque women, and they dressed impeccably. And all of a sudden at the inauguration, you see 17 monochrome pantsuits on women, and you would think that they were on the cover of Vogue the way that they were treated. So we know that there's total disparate treatment of conservatives versus liberals, and that's just what we're going to see for the next 4 years. I don't believe that they will hold Joe Biden's feet to the fire. I don't think any media outlet will hold Joe Biden's feet to the fire. We even saw Al Roker give him a fist bump on Inauguration Day, and you would have thought he was a fangirl over a boy band the way that he reacted. There was no journalistic integrity here, and Saturday Night Live is simply not funny.
Yeah, I mean, and you can also look at all of the late night comics as well, Rob. I mean, just take a look at what they say and what they do, and it's all become so political. And then they choose instead to make fun of a MAGA fan. I'm wondering, Will, what will they do? Will they just continue for the next 4 years to talk about MAGA and talk about the former president? Do they not have any new, fresh material?
I believe that Jim Carrey is going to be back as Joe Biden in the next few weeks.
Okay.
This much, Alex Moffat, who does play the Biden character, is probably going to be getting a stimulus check straight from Joe Biden.
The Nobel Peace Prize, what do you think? Because he did a lot of work in the Middle East with these peace talks. The Abraham Accords is what they were called. Involved 4 different countries, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco. Was said by many folks to be the most significant diplomatic breakthrough in the Middle East in 25 years.
Administration as a whole does was, and to put this point on before Will jumps in, remember, Joe Biden has signaled that he wants to continue the Abraham Accords, so you know that mimicking something is the greatest form of flattery. I think that what a lot of people don't understand here is the methodology and the thought process that went into it.
Brings up a great point, and it also brings up John Kerry again. And I talked about this on my show last week, but it's amazing how people can be so wrong so much of the time in politics and continue to get jobs. John Kerry was so adamant that there's just no possible way you can go around the Palestinians and get any kind of peace in the Middle East. And he was so sure of himself. And of course, he was absolutely dead wrong. And all of that is on display right now, as we've chosen John Kerry is going to be the person that's going to save us all from global warming and climate change. And it's just hilarious to me that these people, I mean, if you look at the Biden administration, they have so many feckless people in leadership positions. It's really scary.
Beyond feckless. And we know that people, unfortunately, have a bit of a short-term memory issue. John Kerry was terrible for the Middle East peace. And we also, to piggyback on Ford's point, moving the embassy to Jerusalem. How many presidents before Donald J. Trump promised they were going to do that? Democrats and Republicans alike, by the way. And the one that got it done was Donald Trump, because he could think outside of the box and try strategies to actually work for Israel. And Israel's a sandbox in the middle of nowhere. I have been there. You can feel the tension. These people need to have these peace agreements. And Sudan was a very important one. President Trump had them removed from the terror watch list when he brokered this deal with Jared Kushner. And then Sudan agreed to pay multi-million-dollar settlements, if you will, to United States victims of terror. So really, this peace accord has brought in so much more than just normalizing of relations. It's truly a diplomatic almost miracle, and it's great for the people of Israel and across the world. So I think this is hugely beneficial. And for John Kerry to do anything other than praise Donald Trump and Jared Kushner, that's really what he should be doing, let's face it.
Yeah. Will, let's go to you now.
Yeah, I mean, BLM Inc., first of all, they're not even a nonprofit. They are a Delaware corporation that, as we saw over the last 8 months, as my city of Philadelphia, Minneapolis, Wisconsin, all of these places basically burned to the ground, and the leaders of BLM were silent. They did not denounce the violence. They did not say we need to back up our police. They did nothing to try to calm the temperatures and nothing at all. And it's really scary to watch now that the word peace and BLM be used in the same sentence. It really makes you feel like you're taking crazy pills.
Yeah, and Ford, some of these Black Lives Matter protests, they spread not only across this country, but they spread overseas as well.
Much.
And stay with us. More of American Agenda, some other big topics of the day coming up.
You can't leave the house. You can't go to work. So it's going to be real hard to boost the Chicago economy until schools open.
Yeah. And Erin, this is one of the issues that Gavin Newsom was talking about in California over the weekend. He said that the kids there may not go back to school this entire year if teachers and staff are all required to get a vaccination first.
Yeah, this is truly shameful. And as a parent, it really hurts me at my core to see how many children are really struggling here. The homeschooling/video conferencing for school is not a substitute for in-person education. And the kids that are getting hurt the most are those who are in underprivileged families, inner city. It's just not right, because these are the best hours of their day. And parents cannot work, as we indicated. So really, these teachers' unions and these liberal states are using children as pawns. The left loves to say, trust the science. The science shows that children aren't really impacted by the coronavirus. We know that. And the science was never there that these schools should have ever really been closed in the first place. We do want our teachers to be safe, but I do believe that many states, and in most instances, they are safe. They can use social distancing and wear masks if they feel that that's the easiest way to do it. But now these teachers' unions are really using children as pawns, and they want to get paid and not have to work. And unfortunately, the only ones that are suffering are the small children.
You know, Will, we covered a story, it was a couple weeks ago, that came out that I think in Las Vegas, something like 17 or 18 kids in that school district had killed themselves out of the depression that led from just being home all the time and not having their social world. What do you think should happen in Chicago? What's the right answer?
This is the thing. Teachers hate being out of the school, out of the classroom, just as much as the parents, just as much as their kids.
Ford is dying to. Hang on a second. Let's get Ford in here. He's going nuts. Go ahead.
Notice the rhetorical flip that Will tried here. No one's saying a word about teachers. What we're talking about is the teachers' unions. And when you look at whether it's the CDC or, to Erin's point, any science, Being in the classroom is no more dangerous than being in your own home, okay, when it comes to pandemic. And the bottom line is the teachers union is not only holding this country hostage, it's holding our economy hostage. And this is not going to be the last global contagion of our lifetimes. We're all relatively the same age on this panel. And what I will say is it will happen again. You now have to break up the teachers unions because this is going to happen again. That's why you need school choice. And that's why you need the money to run with a child versus with a school.
Yeah, Erin, you were talking about how the students are impacted. I mean, it's impacting the teachers too. So it's an important clarification that we're talking about the unions that are making some decisions that do not make sense and they're not based on science.
Right, and I want to just say for the record, Ford, I am much, much younger than I look. So don't say we're all the same age. Having said that, why are private schools managing to do that? Because they are not beholden to the teachers union. So you're really hurting these public school kids here. It's completely unfair and not grounded in any sort of reality other than their own misinformed political realities. And it's sad and undeserved. And this isn't about safety anymore. It's about politics.
Yeah.
And enough with politics and our children. These children are struggling, like you said, with mental health issues, with learning issues, oftentimes getting 2 of their meals a day at school. We really have to get these kids back in person. My son is doing remote learning from Florida right now. It's weird to have a snow day in Florida, I'm not going to lie, but it's so much harder. And if you're not a parent that's able to dedicate your whole entire day to this, it's not getting
That's
done.
very true.
Well,
Very
Ford,
true.
Erin, and Will, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And Rob, thank you for stepping in. And
I'll see you
everybody,
guys at 10 p.m.
10 p.m.
Yeah.
tonight. Make sure to watch Rob Schmidt tonight. I'll see you here tomorrow.